Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So recently, our book club, New Possibilities Book Club, read Will by Will Smith, and we also discussed the book, and that was this past Sunday. I want to encourage you all to like our Facebook page, New Possibilities Book Club. We meet on the last Sundays of each month at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I hope you can join the discussion. We really need to have more brothers join the discussion. Shout out to Elaine Lloyd. Thank you for participating in the discussion. You added a lot to our conversation, and I really appreciate it. So for this video right here, I want to do a book review of Will by Will Smith. This book is excellent. I highly recommend it. I really recommend the audio version of the book because you actually get to hear Will Smith speak and tell his own story. Also, it has sound effects and music involved. So it is great. It is almost like listening to a play or listening to a movie. It is a really great experience. And there's so many life lessons learned in this particular story that I highly recommend it. Now, for this video, there will be some spoilers, so if you haven't read the book, I encourage you to check this out after you read the book or listen to the book, because I can't talk about it without going into detail about a lot of things. The first thing that's really important in this story is how it emphasizes the importance of the Black father in the household. Even though Will Smith doesn't speak in racial terms, it is about the importance of a Black father in the household. He tells us about the role of his father in his life and how his father taught him valuable life lessons such as having a work ethic, lessons such as being relentless and having determination and following through. There's a story in the book about how his father made him and his brother build this wall, to build a wall that really required the work of an expert. But they built this wall over a long period of time, brick by brick. And it taught him a valuable lesson of perseverance in the face of adversity. It taught him that he could accomplish what he wills. And one of the things that's interesting about this book is the title is not just named after his name, but it also means will, like having the will to do something, the will to succeed, the will to persevere. So he learned a valuable lesson in that. His father was a disciplinarian. His father taught him the value of working hard, and he taught him the value of being a provider and protector for his household. So, that part of the book was very key. Another thing is, despite the fact that his father was, a valuable role model, somebody that he respected, his father was also very abusive, towards his wife and all that kind of stuff. And that shaped Will Smith as well, because Will Smith, growing up, he didn't stand up to his father. Unlike his brother would stand up to his father and confront his father, but Will Smith never did. And because of that, he felt like a coward. He felt weak and all that kind of stuff. And that is something that has carried with him. He's carried with him that idea of being a coward throughout his life. And that's something that's very pivotal in this story. Another thing is he talks about the role of his grandmother, in terms of teaching him the value of love and, compassion and just religion in a greater sense than, just going to church and all that kind of stuff. She taught him, what true believers should be about. And that's one of the things that I found that was interesting, because you have a lot of, people that are quote unquote religious. And basically, a lot of times they're real self-righteous, all they want to do is cite scripture and all that kind of stuff and, shame people and all that kind of stuff. But his grandmother lived a life of love and compassion. You know, there's a part in the story where she actually brings in a homeless woman into their house and cleans her up and, you know, helps her out and all that kind of stuff out of compassion and out of love. And, you know, throughout this book, he talks about how he learned love, you know, from his grandmother. Another thing is his mother played an important role as well. She taught him the importance of knowledge and education. So the story deals with that. You know, it also tells us how he got into hip hop, like what brought him to hip hop. You know, his cousin is the one that first introduced him to hip hop. He talks about how he rose, you know, in recognition by doing all these battles. You know, he talked about the role of humor in his life, you know, how basically he used humor to solve problems or to, you know, get people to like him and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, you know, he eventually becomes successful. He gets signed to a label, you know, he starts touring. He becomes the first rap artist to win a Grammy, which is historical. Like, I didn't even realize that he was the very first hip hop artist to win a Grammy. And another thing is they talk about like how, you know, all the artists at that time decided to boycott the Grammys because, you know, the Grammys would not televise the hip hop portion of the program. So because of that, the hip hop artists decided that they were going to boycott. And then that made me just wonder, like, is the hip hop community even united in such a way today that they would rally around a cause and stand on that cause? And I'm not too sure about that, but I thought that that was interesting and powerful. And the thing is, while Will Smith was on the rise, you know, he had this girlfriend that he was dating, this high school sweetheart of his. And while he was touring and all that kind of stuff, this woman actually cheated on him. And because of that, you know, there's a valuable life lesson in that. Because Will Smith talked about how basically his self-esteem was based on whether or not his woman was happy. That's the way he assessed himself, evaluated himself. And he also said that his self-image was based on his ability to win the approval of women in his life. So this is something that I wanted to talk about. So while this man is, you know, he's successful, you know, he's providing for this high school sweetheart, and, you know, he's, you know, loyal to her. Like, while he's touring, you know, unlike a lot of the people in his group, he is not, you know, sleeping with groupies. He's loyal to her. But despite all that, she decides to cheat on him. And a couple of things come to mind about that. You know, number one, some women will never be happy. And that's something that comes up with Jada Pinkett Smith later on. That's something that I'll talk about later on about her. But yeah, some women will never be happy. You can give them the world and they'll be like, what about the stars? And here you have a situation where this woman should have been happy and satisfied with him, but instead of being happy, she decided to step out on him. And that's why I say your self-esteem as a man should not be based upon the happiness of a woman. Because if you do so, you'll never be happy. You'll never have a good self-esteem, you know, because women unfortunately come and go. You know, women a lot of times are never satisfied and never happy. And I might as well go into the whole thing with Jada Pinkett Smith. Like, one thing about her is, number one, she never wanted to be in a traditional marriage. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And Will insisted on a marriage. Like, he's one of the people that pushed for a marriage, and then also her family pushed for it as well. Another thing is, you know, in addition to that, like, there's an incident where he goes all out of his way to celebrate his wife's 40th birthday. You know, he spends 3 years planning her birthday. He has all these elaborate things planned and, you know, does a big old production and all that kind of stuff. And Jada Pinkett Smith is completely dissatisfied with it. She is upset that he did all this stuff because she didn't want all that extravagant stuff for her birthday. And in fact, she says that that whole thing was a grotesque display of ego after he put all this effort into this thing. And that was like a breaking point in their marriage. You know, at that point, he decided that, you know, that he was no longer going to be focused on trying to make her happy and all that kind of stuff. And he was going to do him and she was going to do her and stuff. But that's the example of what I'm talking about because, I mean, first of all, I understand from a woman's perspective, you know, first of all, if a man really loves you and cares for you, he's going to listen to you. If you tell him that you don't want all this extravagant things, you would listen to the woman and, you know, give her what she wants instead of giving her what you want for her. So I get that to that extent. But I think that she could have dealt with that in a different way. She didn't have to diss, you know, his efforts and all that kind of stuff and show a complete lack of appreciation. Another thing is she complained about, you know, this huge compound that he bought for his family, you know, so that they could have, you know, a compound similar to like on the TV show Dallas, where they had that rich family had a land, you know, a property and a estate, and they had a name for it, and he wanted something similar, and he actually got something similar, but Jada Pinkett was not satisfied with that either. Another thing that comes up is his jealousy towards Tupac and all that kind of stuff, and it's just messed up that you would be in a position where you're jealous of your wife's friend, quote unquote friend, that she constantly talks about. It's so bad to the point that, like, I've seen articles or things online where Willow actually wrote out a letter about Tupac, like how she wished Tupac would come back so her mom would be happy. And the other thing is, like, despite all this stuff that Jada Pinkett had in her life, all these things Will Smith provided for her, you know, at one point in her life, she was crying for like 45 days straight. She was not happy and all that kind of stuff. So that goes again to that point about, you know, unfortunately, some women will never be happy. And I get to a degree that she wanted to have a certain life for herself. She actually wanted to live on a farm. She actually purchased some farmland and she wanted to get away from Hollywood at some point right before she hooked up with Will Smith. And her life was basically put on hold because, you know, he had all these, they had an agreement where, you know, they both would not work at the same time, you know, both would not do films at the same time so that one of them could spend time with their children. And it turns out Will Smith had back-to-back movies. So Jada had less of an opportunity to do film and all that kind of stuff. Also, she was into music, like she liked to have she had a rock and roll band, you know, a heavy metal band. And because of the situation, she wasn't able to focus on that as much as she would have liked. So her life ended up not being her own. So to a degree, I understand. But on the same hand, I mean, this guy is literally giving you the world, but yet you're still complaining and still not satisfied. So again, that goes to that point about, like, you can't center your self-esteem on a woman's happiness because some of these women, again, will never be satisfied. And if you center your life around a woman, if you make a woman your world can easily collapse because, you know, some women's feelings go with the wind. You know, one minute they're claiming they're madly in love with you. The next minute they're like stepping out on you. So that's you know, not a strong basis for your happiness. Another thing that comes up in this story is, like, and there's so much, you know, there's too much to cover in this short video. But one thing that comes up is the idea that the most beautiful things in life are on the other side of fear. You know, it's by confronting our fears that we're able to succeed and enjoy blessings and, you know, enjoy the most beautiful things in life. And, you know, in this story, Will Smith overcame his fear of, acting, like, because there's a scene where Quincy, what's his name? Quincy, the guy, the big successful guy, Quincy. I'm blanking on his last name. Y'all give it to me later. But the guy gave him a chance to audition for the Fresh Prince, right? Quincy Jones is his name. Yeah, so he gave him an opportunity to audition for the Fresh Prince, and we know how that ended up taking Will Smith's career in a whole nother direction, into a whole nother stratosphere. But he offered him an opportunity to audition, but it was on site and on right there on the spot. Like, he went to this party and he thought that he was just going to talk about this idea, but he ended up having to audition for this role in a room full of people that he didn't even really know like that. So by overcoming his fear, it really took his whole career into the stratosphere. Like, he has been better known as an actor. He's had, phenomenal success as a rap artist and as an actor, but he's better known as an actor. So yeah, I mean, that by overcoming that fear, he was able to go on to great things and stuff like that, spectacular things. So yeah, there are a lot of life lessons in this story. So I highly recommend it. And I just only touched on a few things, a few of the lessons in the story, a few of the highlights in it. There's so much more to it. So again, I encourage you all to read Will by Will Smith. And I encourage you all to like our Facebook page, New Possibilities Book Club. I will post a link to the page in the description to this video. Also, I will post a link to the invite to the next meeting. So again, we meet on the last Sundays of each month at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we meet via Zoom. If you are in the Baltimore area, eventually we're going to get back to our in-person meetings, and I will make an announcement about that. So we'll have in-person and virtual for those people who are outside of the area. But we had a very engaging discussion, and I hope to see you all there. I want to see more brothers come out to add the male voice to these very important conversations, because the women were going in and supporting Jada. So with that, peace and blessings. Have a great day.